Well, honestly, I was burned out by the
Yeah.
time I got to the end of that chapter.
Yeah.
I didn't know I wanted to do alchemy, but I knew what I didn't want to do anymore. And
Right.
so I sold the business and got out of it, and took a couple years off. And we touched on it briefly with, learning the hard way via
Hmm.
our friends down at the Internal Revenue Service.
Yeah.
Uh, And
Cards.
yes, it's lovely. But I also realized like education is great, but people, especially in this space, need you to just kind of do it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I think there's an opportunity here to launch a company exclusively focused in on the real estate industry. I am naturally pulled forward. And I remember having an acupuncture appointment with my acupuncturist, and she
Hmm.
said, look, I was commiserating a little bit. I'm like, I just don't know what I'm going to do yet, but it's going to
Hmm.
be something. I just don't like something's got to come out like by the summer. She goes, wait, 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 wait. She goes, rarely in life are we suspended between here and there.
Hmm.
We spend almost all of our time planted here or there.
Hmm.
But if you're lucky, one or two times in life, you can be suspended without a commitment into the next. And I learned the definition of culture shock very quickly.
Hmm.
So, we dropped trial and we got in. Like we were like, okay, here we go. But it was extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And but when I started to realize is I kind of liked that. I liked the tension of different.
Mhm. Did you know there's a technology that's actually an app on your phone that uses sound waves to tell your brain what you want your brain to do? We had a young man that was on a guest on our podcast, the Mike Litton Experience, who had a traumatic brain injury. He was sleeping 3 hours a night. He's using Newcalm now and he's sleeping more. Go to newcalm.com, Mike15 promo code. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. Mike is passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
Brandon Green, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I'm super excited for our time together. And like we talked about before we hit record, everybody has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. So, with your permission, we're going to start with where you were born, go up to today, and then we want to talk about the alchemy of money, right? And how you're helping people really take charge of their investments and their money. It's really cool.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. I'm glad to be here.
Appreciate you being here, bud. So, where were you born?
Rock Springs, Wyoming, which is
Really?
yes, it's a small mining town in the southwest corner of Wyoming.
It
It's
sounds
not what
familiar.
most people think of in Wyoming. Wyoming people like Jackson Hole. It's not. No, no, this is a very different part of Wyoming. So
How?
yeah, where I was born.
How's
Yeah.
it different?
Well, it is. It is definitely a working class town.
Hmm.
Its foundational base for decades was the coal mining industry.
Okay.
Then
That
it
is different.
shifted, yeah, then it shifted to trona mining, which it still is today. The everybody knows the best job around is in the mines, and the majority of the industries in that area, the entire economy surrounds the mines in one way or another.
What's Trona?
Trona, yeah, but not a lot of people are familiar with Trona, but it is a it's a material that you find in glass and in baking powder, baking soda. It's
Hmm,
used in a lot of everyday household materials. There's only a handful of places in the world where they mine Trona,
interesting.
and that area of Southwest Wyoming is one of them. And so, yeah, that's where I got my start in life, a very different place than where I live today in Washington, D.C.
So, did you grow up in Rock Springs?
So I lived there until I was 12, and my dad was a local principal of an elementary school,
Hmm.
which was a really big deal because he was the first person in his family to graduate from high school, let alone go on to get a college education, let alone become an educator himself.
Yeah.
And I give a lot of credit to my dad for realizing that the environment of Rock Springs wasn't quite where he wanted his family to be. And so he decided to pursue his doctorate degree in philosophy and become later a superintendent of schools. And so that moved us from Rock Springs, Wyoming to Ames, Iowa, which is where he got his doctorate degree at the University of Iowa or the Iowa State University.
Wow.
And so, yeah, that was a very jarring experience for me at 12. I thought it was the worst thing ever. In hindsight now, and I'm extremely grateful that my dad had a vision for our family to say, no,
Mhm.
this is actually what I want for my family. And he did a major uprooting and moved us to Iowa. And so that's where we spent quite a bit of time. He 2 years there, then off to Oregon, where he got a job as an assistant superintendent. That did not work out. And then back to Iowa. So by the time I was a freshman in high school, we had landed back in Iowa,
In Ames or different place in Iowa?
in Des Moines.
Okay.
So I spent my high school years in Des Moines, but there was a lot of between being 12 and then a freshman in high school, that was a lot of movement in our family, which was a little bit difficult for young Brandon Green at the time, as you can imagine.
So growing up in Rock Springs, and same question about Ames, right, or in Des Moines. So we're gonna go Rock Springs in Iowa, if that's okay, right?
Yeah.
So what was your favorite thing about growing up in Rock Springs, and then same question in Iowa?
Favorite thing in Rock Springs was it's a desert area. So I remember taking my bike out into the desert for what must have been hours and just exploring all the wonderful things of the desert, by myself or with friends. It was really adventurous. It was a great place to grow up in that way. And, I still have very fond memories of my adventures out in the desert. I felt like I was going for miles. I think I probably only went, a few hundred yards from the house, but that was really amazing. And then in Iowa, I learned that I have a love for weather. And so the severe weather, the tornadoes, the big storms that came through really got me interested in weather. As a matter of fact, for a while, I thought I was going to become a meteorologist because I
Is that
was so
right?
fascinated, a TV meteorologist, not just any meteorologist, because I was so fascinated with tornadoes and weather. So
Yeah.
that was one of the things that I really loved about Iowa was the extreme weather.
One of the things I miss the most about Oklahoma is the thunderstorms.
Yeah,
You
right.
know,
Yeah.
how unbelievable they were, and the lightning,
Uh-huh.
shows, and right, yeah. So anytime I ever get anywhere where there's a thunderstorm, I just love it. I just
Oh
like
yeah.
lap it
Yeah.
up. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, we had a big one here in DC the other day, and I'm in a penthouse unit here, so I could see the whole city and the rain shaft coming through and the 70-mile-an-hour winds. It was great.
Yeah. My kids thought I was nuts
Yeah, yeah,
when they
yeah,
were growing. They still do, but they thought I was really crazy when they were growing up,
yeah, yeah.
because when it would rain outside, they would be upset,
Sure,
right? Because they
sure.
couldn't go out and play and all that
Right,
kind of
right.
stuff. And I was actually happy. I was actually giddy when it would rain.
Yeah, you're like, this is great.
And they're like, Dad, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, well, when you work on a farm in Oklahoma, the only time you have off is when it rains.
That's true.
So you're happy when it's raining.
Yeah,
It's just part of it,
great.
So you moved to Ames. Sounds
Yeah,
like it was a little bit of an adjustment for a couple of years. Then you go to Oregon. You're
yep,
there briefly, and then you're back to Des Moines.
right.
In Des Moines, you're in a brand new town. You don't know anybody, and you're now a freshman in high school. What was that like?
That was difficult. It was, I definitely did not feel like I belonged. I didn't really have a friend group. I felt outside of myself and others. I mean, I was 14, 15, so it was a tough age anyway.
Yeah.
So that first year of freshman was tough. And then I sort of locked into the performing arts and found that I really loved singing. Which I knew before, but I joined the choir and theater, and also became interested in and running for student council. So it took me about a year to like get my bearings. And then I was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to make my own way. And I started doing that about the time I was in freshman in high school. By the time I was a senior in high school, I was senior class president. So I,
Beautiful.
quickly like grabbed onto it and ran with it. So I had a great experience in high school, but that first year was bumpy, no doubt.
So in high school, did you have a favorite subject?
I would say probably the music classes that I took were my favorite, followed by I had an incredible language arts teacher who taught me how to write, and I really really loved that class too. So those would be my two, I'd say.
Did you have a favorite teacher?
I'd say probably Mr. Wooden on the choir side. And I spent the most time with him. I was very
Mhm.
involved in every single choir thing that there was available at that time. And he was a very impactful person for me, a great role model. And still to this day, I'm in touch with him. So that was a very positive experience in high school.
So why was he impactful?
I think that he was able to not only help me find a place to belong,
Mhm.
which was a powerful emotional condition, given that when I started, I didn't feel like I did belong.
Yeah.
But he also was able to teach me discipline around music. He was a stickler
Mhm.
for excellence in music and did not settle for anything other than the best. And that was a very powerful life lesson that I see now, right? And I also was able to see through his work that music and the discipline around music and music in general is a connective tissue throughout life. And so if you can become a great musician or learn some of the disciplines around that, that takes you a really long way. So he was
Yeah.
able to connect those dots. But I think what I remember the most about him were excellence and standards, and that if you're going to do it, you're going to do it. You're going to do it right. And if it's worth doing right, it's not going to be easy, and it's
Right.
going to take a lot of work and effort to get there. And I really appreciate that lesson still to this day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So after high school, where do
Yeah.
you go?
Well, then things took an interesting turn. So when I was approaching graduating from high school, I knew I had two real options. One
Mhm.
was to go to college. The other was to go on a Mormon mission. So I grew up in a Mormon household, and so that was pretty much a pretty heavy expectation to do.
Mhm.
I didn't want to do either one of those. So much to my parents, dismay, I think, I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do either one of those. They're like, what? So I remember as a junior in high school, I went and saw a performance for an international musical group called Up With People, which at the time was this youth group that traveled around the world singing and dancing, staying in host families, community service,
Mhm.
non-religious, but certainly, making the world a better place. I was like, I want to do that. So I came home and I told my parents I wanted to do that. And they're like, well, it looks like the tuition is $15,000 a year. Um, we don't have that. So if you want to do that, you got to go figure it out.
Wow.
And I don't know if they knew that I could or what, weren't sure, but I was like, all right. So I spent my senior year in high school raising $15,000 to go on this tour, selling
Wow.
chocolate Easter bunnies and Santa Clauses and holding garage sales. And ironically, as time would play out, getting into a community of realtors
Mhm.
who would sponsor me at different levels, and I would send them different things depending on their level of sponsorship. So
Right.
if you gave me $100, you'd get like one letter,
Mhm.
that sort of thing. I came up with the whole program. Anyway, I ended up raising the money, and I graduated from high school, and I went on the road, singing and dancing and touring internationally. And that was really the beginning of me saying, you know what? No, I'm going to take my own path.
Yeah.
I know that there's this path. Most people should take that path. I'm not going to take that path.
Right.
And that has been a theme throughout my entire life, actually, that I give my parents a lot of credit. They gave me the ability to do that. I suppose there were probably times when they're like, I can't believe he's actually going to do this. But I did. And off I went. So I did that for a couple of years. I did that for 1 year, came back and went to community college for a couple of years, hated it.
Hmm.
Went back again to Up With People for another year before I knew it was time for me to sort of figure something else out.
Yeah. So I'm I'm curious by nature. I'm sure you know that. I'm curious what it was like when you had that conversation with your parents about, I don't want to be a missionary, but I want to do this.
Yeah. Um, it was a series of conversations. I think even early on as a young kid in Sunday school, I was definitely the kid that was a bit non-believer, so to speak, a little skeptical. I'm like, wait a minute. So he took a stick and he like hit the rock and then water came? I don't know how that's going to work.
Mhm.
Right, so, so I think my parents probably knew. My father was the bishop of the local church, so
Wow.
this was not easy for them. I
Yeah.
was clear
You
from
were
day
expected to go on mission.
sure.
Yeah.
I was clear this wasn't going to be a fit for me, And, but, it took them quite a long time. I think they held out hope for a while until I came out as gay. And then that really, I think they're like, well, I guess he's definitely not going to go on a more of a mission at this point. But I think that sort of, I think what they took from me was the confidence in myself and could see I wasn't struggling with the decision. I was clear on it, and they had to kind of get up to speed. And I was admittedly a little bit impatient with them. I look back on it now and I have a lot more empathy for them of what they were going through at that time. At that time, I did not, though, right? I was like, come on, like I've already decided, like what, get with the program.
Yeah.
But they had to work through a lot of change of expectations, a lot of, the life for me that they had envisioned now wasn't going to be, and they had to, deal with that.
So that was a little uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Very.
Sounds like they showered you with grace, though.
Yes, they did. I think, and more grace as time went on.
Yeah.
I would say initially they were, I would say it this way: they gave me enough runway to make it work early on. I think if they had given me a ton of resistance, it would have been harder. So I think they gave me the space to do what I wanted to do, but dealt with their own emotions. But it was also very clear that they were struggling with it.
Yeah.
But as time went on and they saw how happy I was, I think this is the case for most parents, right? At the end of the day, they're really orienting towards happiness for their kids. And they're like, well, this is going to make you happy. And if that ends up not making you happy and you say, well, this is going to make me happy, and it starts to materialize that way, then I think it makes it easier for them to buy into it.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what started to happen over time. I'm talking like 5, 6, 7 years. This wasn't immediate. I think there were a number of years where they were like, what the heck is happening here?
Well, but you were going down this road, right? They had this sort of path they had picked for you, and they were raising you a certain way, and that's not the path you took. But they knew you well enough. I mean, this is a real credit to them. They knew you well enough to know that once you decided this was what you were going to do, you're kind of doing it, right? And so it was kind of like, okay, let's get behind this and let's support him as much as we can, right?
Yeah, and I've talked to them about this, and they said, look, we had early indications that you were going to figure it out. Like when I was 14 in Ames, Iowa, I was like, I need some spending cash, and so I developed a little lawn mowing business in the trailer court that we lived in. I was like, all right, I can mow the lawn for $20, or I could charge you $20 and find a neighborhood kid to mow it for 15 and take the 5. And now I can so I set myself up a little business when I was 14 years old, lawn mowing. Then I think they saw those things to say, all right, well, may not be what we wish for him, but he has enough there that it's going to work out for him, I think is what they were able to start to see early on.
So Up With People, did you go just around the country or did you go around the world?
Around the world. So Finland, Sweden, Norway, the Netherlands, Russia, all over Canada, multiple states across the United States. It was a very extensive travel experience, which was a ton of fun. It was a wild experience, Mike. I mean, look, Iowa guy. I'd been to Wyoming, Nebraska, Iowa, Utah. I've been to Utah too. And all of a sudden,
Oregon, right?
Oregon. Yeah. We drove, so I guess you can add Nevada in there. But other than that, right? So now all of a sudden I find myself in Finland, right? And the very first experience I had in Finland, I'm staying with the host family who doesn't speak any English, right? Of course, and translating at the time, this is long before ChatGPT, the Finnish English dictionary,
right?
And they somehow managed to say, we would like to invite you down to our sauna in the basement.
Right.
Now, I learned that a sauna is a sauna. And so I was like, oh, yeah, I put my swim shorts on. I'm like, go down excited to have a cultural experience. I get down there and I'm with a roommate. And we're both like ready to go into the sauna. We open the door, and to our shock, we see, first of all, it's very small. Like it's a 4-person sauna. Like this is not a large. And second of all, it's mom, dad, brother, and sister, and everybody's butt ass naked.
Right.
So we're like, whoa, not sure where we're going to sit. And it's like, so, that was a shocker.
Uh-huh.
And I learned the definition of culture shock very quickly.
Mhm.
So, we dropped trial, we got in, like, we were like, okay, here we go. But it was extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And, but what I started to realize is I kind of liked that. I liked
Mhm.
the tension of different.
Mhm.
I liked seeing a huge contrast compared to what I knew.
Mhm.
And the more I experienced that, the better I got with understanding who I was.
Yeah.
So that was a wonderful thing to do.
Sounds
For
like it helped a lot.
It helped a lot. And I had
Yeah.
lots of those kind of experiences over the next 12-ish months
Right.
of just like wow scenarios where you're like, didn't even know this existed or people would live like this. Or, I thought the world looked like Iowa, Nebraska, and Wyoming. And I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
no, actually, turns out it doesn't.
Yeah.
And that was very powerful.
Amazing. Okay, so $64,000 question.
Yeah.
Where'd you sit?
We squeezed our bodies into the sauna. And I sat,
Everybody got close.
everybody was very close. I sat squeezed in between my host father and my host mother. And then look, it's getting hot. And I have
Mhm.
really honestly never been in a sauna. And if you've been in a sauna, like the first thing that starts burning is the tip of your ears.
Mhm.
So all of a sudden the tip of my ears are burning. And I
Mhm.
don't want to be like, hey, it's too hot in here. Right now
Mhm.
it's like, so I'm like starting to lean down, right?
Mhm.
And
I'm
and
melting.
pretty
I'm
soon,
melting.
I'm pretty well facing the floor. And then I feel like whap, whap, whap on my back. And I look over to my side to my roommate who's watching whatever's happening, and his eyes are about this big, silver dollars. And what I begin to realize is my host father has taken a little switch, a little stick,
Mhm.
and like put it in the honey and is like whapping my back with it, which now I know is sort of part of the process. At the time, I had no idea that was part of the process. So I
What
am
does
feeling
that do?
stimulates the pores.
Okay.
Um, so I'm feeling a little violated.
Yeah, kind of.
And, in the sauna, naked with my host father whipping me on my back with the whole family watching. And then everybody gets out and jumps in the snow.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
and they come back in and do it again.
Buck naked.
Yes.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it,
Okay.
yeah, back
How
and
long
forth.
were you in the sauna before you went to the snow?
Oh, I don't know. It felt like ages.
Yeah.
The entire process probably only lasted 45 minutes, but it felt like hours of this
Wow.
in and out and up and down. And and by the time it was all done, I got back to my room and I was exhausted, terrified, shocked.
Yeah.
That not knowing, to the degree to which this is part of the Finnish culture. Like I
Right.
found that out later, but I was like, this is it. Like
Yeah.
how it ends. Like I don't know
How'd you feel physically?
I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I didn't feel good. Later, we spent 3 months in Scandinavia.
Oh,
I grew to appreciate that culture,
yeah.
but that first experience was not that.
I can imagine. I can only imagine.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So that year
Yeah.
with Up with People,
Hmm.
what was the single most important thing you learned?
I learned how much I really did love and appreciate people, and I felt that anything I wanted to do going forward, I needed to involve people. I mean, in high school, I felt, I wouldn't say that I loved people. I felt like I was very driven to accomplish things.
Mhm.
I had some friends, not a lot. I became the senior class president. So, you know, but I did not do that through popularity. I did that more through a platform and things I was going to get done for everybody.
Right.
Um, so, and up with people, though, I began to really understand and empathize and appreciate people and felt like, well, whatever I do next, there needs to be a big component
Yeah.
of that. And I'd say I also learned to love the world and travel in general, which still carries me through to today. I still travel a lot, and I find that's because of the roots from that experience.
Absolutely. We're going to take a real quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the alchemy of money. And we're going to talk about what you're doing to help people take their finances to a whole nother level. We'll be right back. Did you know there's an app that has no side effects that allows you to use sound waves to tell your brain what you want it to do? It's called newcalm.com, and it's amazing. It literally uses sound waves. If you want to tell your brain to go to sleep, if you want to tell your brain to recover, if you want to tell your brain to put you in peak physical state, if you want to tell your brain to focus, if you want to tell your brain to take a power nap, you can do all of these things and more with newcalm.com. Go to newcalm.com today, promo code Mike15. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go there today. And we're back with Brandon Green. We were talking before about your first year with Up With People.
Yes.
You come back to Iowa and you go to community college and you hate it.
Yeah.
Talk about that for a second. Why do you think you hated community college?
I came back, and after touring the world and performing in front of thousands of people and seeing all kinds of different cultural experiences, I'm back in my parents' basement, going to, math classes. And so I was like, am I
Kind of a letdown.
It was awful. I
Yeah.
was depressed. I was like, is this it? Like,
Yeah.
did I peak? Right. And I wanted to get on with life. I wanted to do something. And, going to these boring classes did not seem to be that. I can see now in hindsight, the classic college is not the right thing for me.
Yeah.
A little more popular today, right? But back then, college was the path. And remember, my dad used education to move him up the social economic ladder. Yeah. So for him,
first one to graduate high school, first one to graduate college, the whole thing, right? Graduate degrees, the whole thing.
Exactly. So my next decision was out of sheer boredom, right?
Yeah.
Up With People called and was like, you want to come back? I'm like, yesterday. And I went back. I did that for another year, but then I was faced with another question, which is, well, what am I going to really do with myself? And I felt like I had two decisions. One was to go into performing arts as a profession.
Right.
The other was other.
Yeah.
And I chose other because I felt performing arts did not give me enough clarity on how I could drive my own outcomes.
Right.
It felt a little arbitrary of who would really make it big and who would not. I loved performing arts, but I just didn't feel like I could author my destiny in the way in which I wanted to.
Yeah.
So I moved to Baltimore, Maryland in the late 90s, 1999. I had one relationship there. I had no job. I had obviously no college degree. I quickly learned that getting an apartment is a problem if you don't have a job. So I used my, I don't know if I should disclose this, but I will anyway. I used my acting skills to literally create a fake voicemail box of an HR at a fake company so that the apartment complex could do a reference check so I could at least get an apartment. And I convinced them that I was quote unquote good for the security deposit.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Wow. Well, at least there's no revelations in this podcast episode, right? Wow. That is so cool. I love that. I mean, well, you got to figure out a way to make it work, right?
I was like hustling, scrappy, like,
Yeah.
whatever. They're like, we need to call your employer. I'm like, done.
Yeah.
I created my, yeah, exactly. So
Wow.
not my proudest moment, but I got an apartment, and then I got a job I went to a staffing agency, and they're like, well, we can hire you. And I got a job cold calling companies to have them use our staffing services.
Yeah.
That was my very first job. I thought I would, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I needed to make some money. So that's what I started doing in Baltimore those first few months.
You got to pay the rent, right?
I need to pay the security deposit and the rent.
Exactly. So do you mind if we back up just a second?
Sure.
Second year Up With People, second time?
Yes.
What was that like?
It was different because I actually came back as a staff member. Wow. So the first time I was a student, second time I was actually running different cities. So
that had to have been different.
My job at that time was to go in advance of the cast by 3 months to 4 months, set everything up so that they could arrive. Yeah. So And some cities, there was a lot set up in advance. Some cities, there was nothing. There was no facility. There were no host families. There was maybe a sponsor, maybe not. And so, I was plopped into a town, sometimes with help, sometimes with not. And I was like, okay, this is all stuff you got to do. And you got 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks to get it done.
So were you singing with the group, or you're advancing?
This second time around, I was mostly advancing.
Gotcha.
I had some singing opportunities, but mostly it was advanced work. The hardest town was Nicolette, Quebec. A little tiny town in Quebec, no English speakers, and I do not speak French. And it was in the middle of the winter. So I remember getting in there, and the sponsor had arranged for my office to be in a local a hockey arena, as one does in those towns. It was like dark at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Cold. I had no help, and my host family was the local monastery.
Wow.
So that was really tough, like figuring out how to make it go in a town where you don't even speak the language in the middle of the winter when people were, but I made it work somehow or other. And that turned out to be a great city, but it was a very powerful year, and it taught me a lot about making it work.
Yeah.
And that life does not give you ideal circumstances, like never. And you've got to go make it work. And in this case, the stakes were high because those buses were coming into town. So,
like it or not, here they come.
They got to have a place to stay. They got to have food. They got to have a facility to perform in, and there should be an audience.
Yeah.
And
there is no room for error here.
There's no room for error. So it taught me how to manage a calendar, how to, really get something difficult done in a foreign town you've never been in before.
Yeah.
So that was a really powerful year.
So from that year, single most important thing you learned?
I think the single most important thing that I learned was just, no matter the circumstances, I can make it happen.
Yeah.
It gave me a lot of confidence to realize I had a lot of innate abilities to get it done. And even under the most severe circumstances where you're like, there's no way this guy's going to succeed. But I did. And that helped continue to build my confidence as a young person that would then really inform a lot of the career decisions I would later then make.
So why Baltimore?
So Baltimore, my very first boyfriend was in Baltimore. That's the answer. I had my very first relationship. He was the only person I knew. And by then I had come out, mostly to myself, to my family, and to a few friends. And I was simultaneously trying to figure out this professional path and also a personal path. What did it mean to be gay in today's world at that time? With my background, what was that going to look like? So there were two, simultaneous journeys that were happening, and I landed in Baltimore to experiment with those journeys.
Gotcha. So in Baltimore, you go to work for the staffing agency, you're cold calling. Yeah. How long were you doing that?
So I did that for about 7-8 months. And then one afternoon, the owner of the company calls us into the conference room. And look, the numbers had been down, and, there was a lot of chit chat, and she called, pulled us together. There were 12 of us, 13 of us. And she goes, I'm really looking for some feedback. What is going on around here? How can we make things better? Now, remember, I had just come from Up with People. We share feedback openly and honestly enough with people. So to my surprise, I looked around the room and nobody raised their hand. Well, I had some ideas. So I raised my hand and I said, well, I'd been there for 6 months. I had observed a lot.
Right.
So I said, well, Christina, I really think that a lot of the challenges around here have to do with your leadership style. You could have heard a pin drop.
Yeah. Yeah, you could.
She goes, really? As her face got really red. She said, my leadership style? And she walked about 6 feet over to my cubicle, grabbed a small box out of the trash, packed the 3 or 4 belongings that I had in my cubicle while everybody was watching, came back to me at the table, shoved the box at me and said, fine, you're fired.
Bye-bye.
Now, of course, I was appalled. Like I was
Yeah,
honestly trying to help her.
right,
I had no idea that I was shocked.
right. My heart was in the right place.
So I'm carrying my little box out the door to my 1992 Chevy Cavalier,
Yep.
and I cannot believe that I have just been fired. So that was the end of my first job.
Wow. Wow.
So I wish I
Felt
had
like
had,
you got kicked in the stomach.
oh man, I wish I had been able to have some presence of mind and be like, see, well, this is what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
this, but no. I was just hung my head and walked out the door.
Yeah.
So I spent a few weeks feeling very sorry for myself. And then one afternoon, my mom called and she's like, well, what are you doing?
Mhm.
I'm like, come here, come here. She goes, no, like nobody's bailing you out. You're in Baltimore, you know, uh, get a job somewhere. I don't care. Like, get a job. Like, you got to figure it out.
Go be productive. Yeah.
Go be productive. Like, we're not sending you any money. So I started walking around downtown Baltimore with my resume and a business card, knocking on doors in the high rises downtown Baltimore, seeing if anybody needed to hire. I did that for a few weeks. And then one afternoon, I was having lunch in the local cafeteria, and this lady walks up to me and she goes, what the heck are you doing? You've been here for weeks, like walking around the building, asking people if they're going to hire you. Like, it's a little weird. Like, what's going on? And I told her, and she goes, oh, I don't know. I'm kind of impressed by that. And she hired me. And I went on to another staffing firm, this time in Washington, D.C., that she was the manager of, and it was information technology staffing sales. And she taught me how to really do the job.
Yeah.
I stayed there for a year and a half, 2 years before that industry started to collapse during the dot-com boom or bust. But she taught me pipeline management, how to make cold calls. I had to do 100 cold calls a day, 5 client visits a week, and 3 client lunches, and close 2 deals. And if I missed my numbers for more than 2 weeks in a row, I was out.
Mm-hmm.
And she was great. And she really showed me a lot about what it meant to sell. And I learned a really important lesson there, which is you just don't know who's watching.
Mm-hmm.
When you think, you're just not getting any progress, somebody happens to walk up and be like, I've actually been noticing. And
You're on stage, whether you like it or not.
yep. Yeah. And we often feel like we're living this little journey in our heads and we're wandering around. No, people do notice.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe not when you want them to, but there is a noticing going on. She noticed me over the course of the weeks. She'd been in and out of that building having some appointments, and I happened to still be there.
Mm-hmm.
And her little curiosity, like, this young guy, he's like door knocking, that's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward many years later, I would have hired me. I mean, I wasn't, and that led to a great real footing into Washington, D.C.
Yeah. So you moved to Washington, D.C., you're in sales.
Yeah.
When do you start Alchemy of Money?
So not for another 20 years, truthfully.
Wow.
My first, I got into real estate is ultimately what led to Alchemy of Money. We'll get to that. So that sales job was great, but it was also at the time when the information technology staffing or business itself was going down. I watched an infomercial late one night on how to buy real estate, no money down. And I was like, this is great. I don't have any money to put down. And I followed the little program. I bought a piece of real estate in Capitol Hill in the year 2000, got into real estate sales as a realtor, and built a large real estate company in the DC region over the next 15, 16, 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until the back end of that journey that I formed Alchemy. But truthfully, the beginning of Alchemy started as soon as I got into real estate, because at Alchemy, we help real estate agents and investors and brokers and owners and teams, particularly lots of teams, get better with their finances.
Yeah.
Well, the reason we're so good at it is because I spent 20 years doing it,
Mm-hmm.
figuring out all that needs to happen to make that a success. And you might already realize from my journey so far, it's not exactly been linear straight up. There's been a lot of, these ups and downs, and that process of building my real estate business here in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia region informed ultimately what became Alchemy.
What was the key to your success in real estate?
So I segmented my journey in real estate in 3 stages. And the first stage was all about sales, individually being able to get people to trust you quickly, to sign an agreement with you to help you buy or sell a piece of real estate. And do that at the highest velocities I could, personal production. That took me the first 5-ish years.
Yeah.
Then I realized, okay, I have to evolve my skill set from a salesperson to a business person. Now I need to hire people, and that's a very different skill set.
Yes, it is.
And a lot of people listening know, right? Sales is sales, business is business. Those are two different things. And it took me a while to figure it out. And, the IRS, I credit the IRS for several lessons along the way of what it means to be a business person.
That's so sweet of them, right?
That nice. Yes. Yeah. Lots of IRS debt, audits, all kinds of crap that I had to go through to make the pivot from salesperson to business person. But I did it because I knew there was more that I wanted to accomplish than what I could individually sell.
Right.
And that I had to evolve my skill set. Then I had to evolve again to level 3, which was leadership.
Yeah.
And realizing I can be great at sales, I can be good enough at business, maybe even great at business, but that's limited too until you get great at leadership. It takes me all the way back to Up with People, where it all became about people.
Yeah.
Right? First it was about leads and listings, and then it was about finances and numbers and metrics, and then it became about leverage or people. And that 3-process iteration over the course of 15, 16, 17 years, we were able to build a firm, 1,000 real estate agents, 60 million in revenue. It was an incredible journey. And that's really how I began to think about opportunity and how to evolve that for myself and the people that were around me.
Right. So in production, what was the single most important thing you learned?
I'd have to say follow-up.
Yeah.
Right. That rarely in production does the sale occur immediately. It occurs over time.
Especially in real estate.
In real estate, it's all about the follow-up. I learned quickly that if I was a relentless follow-upper, and frankly, I worked harder than anybody else. I began my career door knocking. I took the idea of 100 cold calls a day, and I said, door knock 100 doors a day.
Yeah.
Nobody does that.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I'm going to do it. I mean, I didn't have a family. I really no friends. I just don't knock on doors. So rain or shine, heat or cold, I was out there and sold like $10 million in real estate that very first year. Because literally, eventually, if you wander around the neighborhood knocking on enough doors, somebody notices and says,
"Oh, you mean you're on stage again?"
On stage.
Unbelievable.
Somebody's like, you know what? I'm impressed by that. I want to give you a shot.
Yeah.
And if another one right.
Yep.
So I think that like follow up, persistence, consistency, just do the activity. And then the results will follow.
Stay in front of them, stay in front of them, stay in front of them.
Stay in front of them, stay in front of them, and do it at a high velocity. It's not enough to do it for a couple hours a day, usually when you start. No, I was doing it for like 10 hours a day. People are like, well, how are you so successful? I was like, I don't know. I work 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, knocking on doors. Like, I promise you, you do that, you'll be successful too. I'll do that. Yeah, well.
Right. You want a life or you want business, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you decide to get into the business of real estate.
Yeah.
What's the single most important thing you learned in that stage?
I learned how powerful, frankly, real estate is as a wealth creator. I also learned how powerful it is as an entrepreneur to be able to drive your own destiny through business. Fantastic lessons. And real estate is sort of the heart of so much that it not only clicked the box for my personal ambition, but it also clicked the box for me loving to help people and have a big impact. It's like, I can do both these things in the same industry. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Right. And go a million different places. It is the foundation of so many other industries. Later, I would take advantage of that in building Alchemy. But early on, I was like, how much can I do here in this pot, right? So we did sales, brokerage, title company, got into flipping houses. And so all these things we were able to do around that real estate transaction.
How do you get to 1,000 realtors?
Recruiting a lot of people over a long period of time.
Yeah.
So my job eventually became all about people, right? And so I wasn't listing or selling houses anymore. I was listing and selling recruits, right? I mean, literally, I was like looking for
That's
recruits.
really what it is. That's really what it is.
Yeah. And so, there's some similarities in the skill set, but they're a little bit different. So recruiting a lot of people and then recruiting a lot of great leaders who can then also recruit a lot of great people, and creating a foundation that was attractive for people to join. So, a lot of elements like that. I think part of it too, at the beginning, is we set a vision, we wanted to do it. We didn't say, look, we'll get a handful of people here. We're like, no, if we're going to do this, we need to compete with the big regional players in the Washington area.
Yeah. And you got to do that. You got to have numbers if you're going to do that.
You can't compete with, at the time, Long and Foster, I think, was the big player. You can't compete with them. You got 20 agents. Like, what are you doing? Like, no, we're going to go big.
Yeah.
If we're going to do it, we're going to do it as big as we possibly can.
Yeah. Go big or go home.
Yeah.
Were you a franchise? Were you an indie?
Yeah. Franchise Keller Williams was the franchise.
Gotcha.
So we bought the Keller Williams franchise in the area before Keller Williams was even a known name outside of Texas, Oklahoma, right? Yeah. Yeah.
I started in 2000.
You did?
Yeah. Well, January 1st, 2001 officially. Yeah. But I got basically pre-approved and all that kind of stuff in 2000. Yeah. So I owned it for 18 years.
Yeah, that's great, right?
Yeah. Well, I didn't build it to 1,000 agents, so I feel puny by comparison, but it was, for me, it was a family gig. My sister was the MCA for 14 years. My mother was at the front desk for 18. And so, I was super careful about who I brought in because they had to work with my family.
Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't quite the same, but 1,000 is a big number, and 60 million is an even bigger number. I mean, that's big in terms of revenue. So at some point, you're at 1,000 agents, you've got 60 million in revenue. At some point, you decide to start Alchemy of Money.
Yeah.
Well, what causes that? Because we've got people that are listening to this podcast that are thinking about starting a business, and they haven't done it yet, right? Maybe they're in the process of it. Can you talk about that mindset for a second? What was it that took place that made you realize that you needed to go do this?
Well, honestly, I was burned out by the time I got to the end of that chapter. Yeah. I didn't know I wanted to do alchemy, but I knew what I didn't want to do anymore.
Right.
So I sold the business and got out of it, and took a couple of years off. Yeah. And luckily, I had built enough around me that I could do that, which, I think is a really cool thing to aim for in any sort of endeavor. And in that process of taking a couple of years off and kind of taking a step back, I mean, by the time I was done there, I was really, I wasn't even sure I wanted to be in the industry anymore, to be honest, because I'd just sort of run raw for a long, long time. But that 2 years, and the pandemic was in there too, really gave me some time to think about what I wanted to do next. And I knew I really loved to help people. I knew I remembered I loved the industry. I remember what I loved about it. I started as an education platform, helping real estate agents with their finances, because that's really what I had become passionate about from my own experience. And we touched on it briefly with, learning the hard way via our friends down at the Internal Revenue Service. And yes, it's just lovely. But I also realized, like, education is great, but people, especially in this space, need you to just kind of do it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I think there's an opportunity here to launch a company exclusively focused in on the real estate industry, helping agents, brokers, teams with their finances, their profit and loss statements, their balance sheets, their taxes.
So it's a done for you model?
It's done for you model. We do a full suite bookkeeping. We have several CPAs on staff. Like, we're a full service accounting firm.
Gotcha.
And nichely focused in the real estate industry. So, really cool entrepreneur venture, because I'm not a CPA, right? So building a CPA firm, not as a CPA, has, I think, actually been an advantage.
Yeah. Can I ask something?
Sure.
What'd you do for 2 years?
So I wrote a book that I haven't published. Maybe at some point I'll polish that thing up and get it out there.
Hold on. What's the book about? Hold
Oh,
on.
it's sort of it's a memoir of my journey. It was like a cathartic experience of lessons learned along the way and all kinds of crazy stories. And
Is
I
there
know,
anything we missed here?
no, there's a lot. We don't have so I probably ought to get that out at some point, Mike. So,
Why
um,
haven't you published it?
truthfully, because Alchemy started and took off.
Oh, you've been too busy.
So initially, I was like, I'm going to do speaking, I'm going to do teaching, I'm going to do book writing, but maybe this business, and then bam, the business took off.
Yeah.
So that's cool. But to your question, I did that, and then we did a lot of traveling, even during the pandemic. We managed to travel a little bit, much more than you might imagine. And I did a lot of walks in the woods, and I did lots of coffees. It was wonderful, actually. It was a 2-year sabbatical. I look back on that time as a very creative time and a wonderful time to really pivot my entire business life into a new area.
Was there anything pulling you during that 2 years?
Um, I am naturally pulled forward, and I remember having an acupuncture appointment with my acupuncturist, and she said, "Look," I was commiserating a little bit. I'm like, "I just don't know what I'm going to do yet, but it's going to be something. I just don't like something's got to come out like by the summer." She goes, "Wait. She goes, "Rarely in life are we suspended between here and there. We spend almost all of our time planted here or there. But if you're lucky, 1 or 2 times in life, you can be suspended without a commitment into the next." She goes, "Stay there as long as you possibly can. You will eventually land. There's no doubt. It's in your DNA. You will land. You're trying to land now. But I encourage you to stay up in the air longer." That was good advice. So I did. That was so I started.
Amazing. Somebody who's sticking needles in you has that kind of advice.
Great, right?
Right.
So, so I started to imagine being pulled up instead of being pulled forward. And that did, I think, ultimately create even better and more momentum when I finally did decide to shift gears forward.
So you started Alchemy how long ago?
2.5 years ago.
Okay. And how's it been?
It's been a rapid, wild climb. So my theory, which was there's a need in the business or in the marketplace for this kind of business, turned out to be true.
Oh, yeah.
Especially
being a practitioner, being a business owner, all that. I mean, yeah, they just, I obviously don't own the office anymore, got out of the business of owning the office in 2018. I still get calls. Yeah. How did you deal with this? How did you do this? Right? And it's like, they'll call me because they can't get a hold of their broker, which I was their broker, right, for all that time. Yeah. Or not all that time, but most of that time. But it's they're just busier than a 1-hour paper hanger, and they don't have any time to think about investments. They have no time to think about what to do with their money or taxes or any of that kind of stuff. So the done for you thing is brilliant simply because that's what they need.
It is. I mean, some people enjoy the classes, but truthfully, they need it done. Somebody's got to, so it's grown quickly, and I've been very grateful for that. It's been a lot of fun too, to take all the experience and learning from being an entrepreneur for a number of years and start a new business again, and apply all those lessons to what we're doing today. Obviously, the real estate market itself has been very challenging.
Oh, sure.
So we're also starting a business in a challenging market, which I actually think has been good. It's given us a chance to really refine our systems, and now we have 25 full-time employees, CPAs, bookkeepers, payroll administrators. So
your chops in these types of times.
Yeah.
I keep telling people, this is, if you start something in a hot market, It's a different set of things you learn. This is
the time.
Yeah,
And always
absolutely.
practice, Mike. In the market that's coming eventually, at the peak of that market, you'll look at the superstars at that market and you'll see they started in this market.
Mhm.
It happens every
Absolutely.
single time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. And it's interesting because, you know, having done this for 33 years, markets ebb and markets flow, right? Those things happen. We're constantly shifting. Now, for a long time, we were shifting a certain direction, right? But we're constantly shifting. And when things start to get, let's say, pear-shaped, okay, you find out who the real players are. You find out who the people are that are going to stick through and they're going to make it happen. And what they do is they gain enormous market share that they'd never dream of doing in a hot market, okay? And all of a sudden they come out of that market. And when it starts getting hot, they're dominating, baby. They are absolutely killing it. And they will do much, much better than the people that are in and out and back and forth and right.
You know it.
So in the time that you've owned Alchemy, what's the single most important thing that you've learned? And what's your favorite thing about owning Alchemy?
Favorite thing by far is how much we really can help people when people either have tax issues and we can solve them, or they don't have the tax issues per se. They're just paying the maximum amount possible to the IRS. Right. And we're able to shift that for them and optimize that a lot better. It's real dollars in their pocket that they can do other things for. Super rewarding, right? I think the other thing I've learned is whether it's this business, that business, or another business, people, hiring, recruiting, training, firing, it's all the same skill set.
Yeah, it sure is.
If you get good at that, you can apply it across anything else you're doing.
True.
So, you know, like I'm not a CPA, but I know how to recruit, hire, train, manage, and fire CPAs. Like I figured that out because they're people like anybody else.
Yeah.
So that transferable skill set is now serving me extremely well in this chapter of my career. So that's been really fun to see that while I'm in financial services now instead of real estate sales or brokerage, so much is the same that's come over from those experiences.
So somebody's listening to this and they're a realtor, they're a developer, they're in the business of real estate and they need help. They need, and by the way, we're talking about a large portion of the population of our industry that needs help. How do they get in touch with you?
Just go right to our website, alchemyofmoney.co.
Interesting.
Alchemyofmoney.co.
Not .com, .co.
.co. That's right.
Alchemyofmoney.co. And I'm looking at brandongreen.com, right?
Yeah, that's a personal site, which is cool. You know, eventually that'll have that book. But for now, go to alchemyofmoney.co. That'll take you right to our company. You can learn more about what we're doing and learn how we can help you too.
So you've written the book and you're looking to publish it.
Eventually, I got to get back to that, Mike. I think I might, you know, we're getting closer to the point of Alchemy's maturity where I can put a little bit more time into that. Not yet, but soon.
I am fascinated by this. I want to read this book.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one.
So will you come back on and we'll
yeah, would love to.
We'll review the book and go through it.
Yes, you bet.
Send me a copy. Okay. We'll get you on the schedule and we'll have you come back and we'll go through each chapter.
Okay. All right.
This will be fascinating. I will love every second of this. I've loved every second of this, but that will be really, really cool.
Thank you very much.
Is there anything else you'd like to cover before we wrap up?
No, thank you for the opportunity. And thank you everybody for listening today.
So Alchemy of Money, alchemyofmoney.co.
Correct.
Alchemyofmoney.co or brandongreen.com, right?
Yeah, go to the Alchemy site, and then as soon as we get the book going, then we'll go to the Brandon site. But alchemymoney.co site for now.
I can't wait for this book. So how much more do you have to do the book?
Probably not that much, truthfully. I don't know.
Okay.
6 months.
Okay, well, I'm excited.
Okay.
We gotta get you on the calendar and get this. We gotta get this done. Brandon Green, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. This has been such a great ride. I loved every second of it. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you, Mike.
Appreciate you, bud. Can I ask you a question? Did you know that there's a technology that uses sound waves that'll tell your brain what to do? There literally is. It's called newcalm.com. It can tell your brain to heal, tell your brain to sleep, tell your brain to do all kinds of things. It can get you fired up. It can be a pre-workout. Newcalm.com. And the promo code is Mike15. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at the Mike Litton Experience.